we're looking at this book, The Great Garrett. This is sort of the most early Orthodox person writing in theory in defense of Reformation. And we had seen yesterday that he talks about the lulav, that we should get rid of doing hakafas with the lulav, Hoshanas, because it was leading to people pushing each other. And now, obviously, if somebody had written that at another time, you wouldn't bat an eye. But over here, he's writing it in the place where the first Reform sort of school is, and synagogue, although it's really, I think, for kids. He's part of the Consistory, which is the three modern rabbis who really were appointed by Israel Jacobson, who is the first kind of reformer. And half this book is about kitniyot, getting rid of kitniyot. And here he talks about chibur harava, this custom of beating the arava on the ground. He says, according to Rashi, chibur arava eno rak lenanua bilvad. He says, according to Rashi, it was never beating it on the ground. It was done in the temple. In the temple, they would go around the altar with aravot on Hoshana Rabbah, and they would put them on the side of the altar, and the aravos would hang over the top. And so we do it in memory of that. But according to Rashi, I guess even the reason we do it is just shaking it. It's not beating it on the ground. According to the Rambam, he says there is a concept of beating it on the ground, or on a vessel, but it's only once, and then that's it. And if you do more than once, he says you're taking away from it. You're sort of ruining it. And he says it could be that maybe you shouldn't be doing that on Chol HaMoed. Maybe you shouldn't be tearing the leaves off. He says, and it was never meant to be like most people do today, that they beat it on the ground with all their might. And they don't want to leave on the arava even one leaf, on one branch. It's as if it's all taken away. And the children play with them. Anybody who is tuned into godly, leads to frivolity. And you shouldn't do this kind of thing in the house of God, which is called Mikdash Ma'at, a small temple. Anybody who is spiritually attuned to doing this mitzvah, they should do it in their house. Rabbi Chana bar Tzadok, you see that in the Gemara Sukkah, that Omar Evo Hava Kamina Kamed Rabbi Lazar bar Tzadok. Somebody came to Rabbi Lazar bar Tzadok, but I see Hahu Gavra Arava Kamei Shaka Chibud V'Labirach. That Rabbi Lazar bar Tzadok took this arava and he held it, but he didn't, and I guess he beat it, but he didn't make a bracha. And the Torah says, why didn't he make a bracha? Because the Yachid Habe, he was an individual. This was an individual idea, an individual thing. And in Yachid Kovei Bracha Latzma, an individual doesn't make a bracha, doesn't establish a new bracha for themselves. Harei Da'af Rabbi Elazar ben Tzadok Chabit La'arava Beito. So you see that this one time in the Gemara, when it talks about beating the arava, it was done in somebody's house alone. We don't make a bracha in the shul on this. It's not a public thing. He says it's obvious that anybody who has the fear of God on their face, so they should do this in their house. And now, my brethren who love truth and peace, you should listen to the words of the wise. And we should have redemption from this. So he's arguing that it's gotten out of hand, that it's not nice in a shul, that shuls have to be treated like, you can see the desire for, it's the move away from the shtivel to the big, the idea of the big synagogue, big temple, and that you shouldn't treat it like a. So that makes sense. Let me read you something. There's a book I found. This is a book that was written recently. Milchemto shel Maran Chassam Sofer Mechadshim. This is about the war of the Chassam Sofer, or Moshe Sofer, against those who are trying to do new things. And it brings together all the tshuvot, published recently in Israel, Rabbi Nassim David Rabinowitz. So a year, 2013. And here there's a letter that's published in Tafkuf Ayin, which is 1810, and to Rabbi Avraham Titkin. What year was that book we were just looking at? This book was published, Tafkuf Ayin Beis. This letter seems to be earlier, but obviously things are already out there. He's writing this to Rabbi Avraham Titkin. This is a letter from the Chassam Sofer. And he writes, we have to protect the breaches that are happening, and especially in Westphalia, which is, of course, where Rabbi Steinhardt is that we're just reading. It's not good what's going on. Now here he's talking probably about this heter for kitniyot, permitting kitniyot, that Rabbi Steinhardt wrote. That's the whole beginning of that book we were just looking at. He says, you can't just permit something. An individual can't permit something that's been forbidden for so long. And any individual wants permitted is going against custom in Ashkenaz for so long. Hayom Hayira Einai Minom Amrirotav Odos Consistoria Dinas Westphalia. The consistoria, that is the small group that Rabbi Steinhardt is the head of in Westphalia. They want this consistory was created in 1807 by Israel Jacobson, who is really the first reformer. They want to permit kitniyot, and they have stood up to permit it. It sounds like even before that book was published by Rabbi Steinhardt, they'd already come out with the idea. He had already said the idea. Maybe we know why they permitted it. And we have to judge them favorably. Because maybe they saw that so much matzah is having to be baked so quickly because they can't use kitniyot, that the matzah is chametz, that the matzah is not being baked well. So maybe he says you could be malamid zchut. Maybe you could assume the best about this Rabbi Steinhardt and the other two rabbis with him, the consistotor, and that they're just trying to permit kitniyot because they're worried that the matzah is being baked too quickly and not carefully enough. And maybe when originally this takana was made, in the year 1000, around there, not to eat kitniyot, they would not have made it if they had known that it was going to lead to matzah that wasn't made properly. And maybe there's grounds to do what they're doing. And if that's true, then maybe they've done something that is okay. But if they're going to eat these kidneyot, they should boil them right away. That's even better. We've talked about that. So it's interesting. He's referring to Rabbi Mendel Steinhardt, and even though he thinks the Chassam Sofer thinks we should keep kidneyot, he does want to be Muhammad to see that the Chassam Sofer considered Rabbi Steinhardt somebody who he had to judge favorably, and he quotes in the notes here from Rabbi Steinhardt's book. It's pretty clear that Chassam Sofer, that's who he's addressing. But that, I think you can conclude from this that Chassam Sofer saw Rabbi Steinhardt as somebody who was, orthodox. Again, the words don't mean much. But maybe you have to always wonder when you're reading something, who am I reading? Where are they coming from? So clearly, even though Rabbi Steinhardt permits kidneyot, it was really permitting them first for the soldiers, and then maybe it became more general. I mean, even though here he wants to make changes and make the synagogue more decorous by having everybody say Kaddish together, by getting rid of the circling of the bima, by not having people beat the Arab on the ground. It sounds, like a change, maybe radical, but he's doing it for the right reasons. And certainly, I think we see the Chassam Sofer, at least at that point, saw him as somebody who is a traditional person. So, the idea that there is, room for change in there, and he knows that he's supporting, a reformer in a sense. Again, it's so early that's even hard to call it that. But Israel Jacobson is the one that has appointed Rabbi Steinhardt. Rabbi Steinhardt is referring, I think, to the synagogue that Israel Jacobson is creating. So early reform is, the lines are very blurry. That's really part of the lesson. All right, maybe we will we'll look at a new topic. Okay, have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Paul.